Hope everyone's enjoying their day of festivities as much as I am. Welcome to Professional Development. I'm going to be covering the major theme of backwards design. On that note, I'd like to share with you a quote by Stephen R. Covey. Simple, and it says, "Start with the end in mind." With backwards design, you want to first consider the objectives, the learning objectives that you want to show your students and how those develop the assessments that you would like them to perform on. And then ultimately, you want to consider the activities and the learning approaches or teaching approaches that you would like to utilize in order to help students achieve these desired results on an assessment. So let's get into it. First thing that we need to consider, what do students need to know and do? An acronym comes to mind, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, or TEKS. Of course, they are content specific, and as you consult your respective set of TEKS, you should be thinking about how that will be essential in developing your assessment. As we're spending the important amount of time in developing our assessments while grounding them in TEKS-based questions and learning levels, it will better prepare students for STAR exams as well as performing well on unit assessments. So once you know your respective set of TEKS and you're implementing them regularly within your assessments, it gives you a better idea of what type of content students need to know. So as far as the value of assessments when lesson planning, it provides a guiding star, so to speak. When you're considering what needs to be taught to your students, you need to look no further than starting with your TEKS and then developing the assessment so that you can have an idea as to what types of activities provide the biggest bang for their buck in terms of providing students with that educational return. So whilst teachers may have been utilizing some of the same activities for years and years, when they take an opportunity to consult regularly revised TEKS, perhaps it'll be the case in which some of the activities that they've been using are less effective and they're simply not preparing students or addressing certain TEKS like that teacher might want. Now, does that mean that that activity should be scrapped altogether? Not necessarily, but if they can make sure that those activities are specifically addressing those TEKS, perhaps a simple revision is all that's necessary for that particular activity, in which case students would be well served because it's an area in which a teacher is comfortable, while at the same time it's generally the type of activity that teachers are using because students plain and simply enjoy it. So moving forward, how is it going to contrast with traditional lesson planning? Well, there are a couple of things to consider. Rather than starting with those traditional activities in mind, it's important that all teachers can reflect upon the assessments as well as the TEKS that will be in the assessments prior to lesson planning. And as those learning objectives become the basis or the framework for lesson planning, it's much more likely that students will walk away from respective units with the desired knowledge and the skills in order to perform well on assessments. In addition to that, it helps focus the lesson for teachers, so it's a benefit to them while specifying the objectives that they would want to spend the bulk of their time both delivering and reviewing, so as to ensure that, again, teachers are providing a good framework for students and helping them understand what they need in preparation for unit assessments or STAR exams as those apply to respective disciplines. Clarity and direction as well, as teachers have a better understanding as to what will be taught. It gives them the clarity and understanding as to how they should be spending their time. I want to consider a practice activity at this time. For all of you that are present here, you are to assemble yourselves in groups according to your content team, and from there consider whether current practices are utilizing backwards design. So you've been asked to bring with you your unit assessment for this upcoming unit, as well as a copy of the lesson plans, in addition to a set of the TEKS that are to be addressed within that unit. So the first thing that you will do within your team is to review the TEKS. While going over those TEKS, make sure that you're paying particular attention to supporting TEKS as well as readiness TEKS, and differentiating between those and understanding which, again, provide the biggest bang for your buck and which ones would have a higher requisite amount of time or higher requisite importance. Number two is to review the assessments that you currently have and ensure that they have proper TEK emphasis, right? For the more reoccurring TEKs or themes that show up on end of course exams, it's important that those concepts and principles are properly emphasized within your unit exams so as to prepare those students for those end of course exams in the STAR test. And then lastly, how can we expect students to be prepared for the material which we did not cover? So that's why our lesson plans need to be centralized or focused on the importance of the different concepts covered in those assessments. So the first thing that we're doing again is reviewing the TEKS, making sure that we are allowing for proper application of the TEKS within the assessments we are providing for our students. And once we've assured that that is the case, we want to make sure that our lesson plans are properly aligned with the TEKS that are expected to be learned and expected to be delivered upon in the assessment. Lastly, after you have handled those three tasks, I want you and your team to ask the question, is proper emphasis placed on high priority learning goals? So for the main learning objectives that you would have for your students throughout the year, I want you to consider whether or not, in your personal opinion, proper emphasis is being placed on students, ensuring that students will learn those concepts throughout the school year and throughout this particular unit. If you feel that you are justified in saying that that is the case, then I want to congratulate you and provide you with the kudos, so to speak. But if in your heart of hearts, you and your team come to the conclusion that there's more that you can do to help better expose or provide content coverage and ultimately prepare students for these assessments, then that's something worth taking the time to better plan as well as to conclude as a team, so as to better prepare them and help them feel more confident in going forward, helping them be more successful. So as you apply this practice throughout the various units that you have, you can anticipate that overall performance on EOC exams will increase, and it will be worth comparing the data of this year with that of previous years to see if this practice is better focalizing our time and efforts to ensure that they will provide the return that we hope for or expect, in some cases exceed expectations. With any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to hearing what type of results you've been seeing within your respective team. Thank you so much.